Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about boredom and stress. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, I have been programming now for about a year and the university feels very challenging and fun, but actual work has become very boring. Do you have any suggestions? And the short answer is you need to figure out what it is that stimulates you, my friend, and likely it is that you are working in a company where you're simply not being able to solve the sort of problems that will stimulate you. Let me explain. So, one of the most common sentiments within software development is that you can either be bored or you can be underpaid and stressed. Well paid and bored, underpaid and stressed. But at the same time, stressed in a good way, I would say, usually in a stimulating fashion. So this is the very common analogy, like the I would say prejudice almost, or yeah, let's call it that, between the corporate developers and the startup developers. So usually the idea is that, okay, if you work for a really large corporation, you might be working in a very slow moving environment and you might be very well paid, but the job that you actually do might not be as stimulating because you have less choices, you have less room, like wiggle room for experimentation, things of this nature. This is, I want you to know, guys, this is not always true. It depends, it always depends, but this is usually the way that people kind of feel about that world. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the startup world where, depending on the size of the startup, you might have pretty much every single day be like a new exciting adventure where you need to build a new feature or a new proof of concept to ship it basically on the same day or the same week or something like that. You might be working off of cardboard boxes or sitting on like bucket, but at the very least you have a lot of fun with all of the different tooling options and all the free personal freedom that you have, because you kind of have to have that in a small company, and you're underpaid and like overworked and all of this good stuff, right? So the person's question here, the thing that makes it tricky for me to answer how you're supposed to solve this is because I don't know what it is that you find stimulating. Now, it can be everything from, oh yeah, I found the collaboration that was going on in the university to be the thing. It can be that I found the challengers, like the different exercises to be challenging, and all the theory and all of the different practices that you needed to learn about, right? And it could also be that, oh, I just enjoyed learning new things. There's so many different flavors to this thing, how do you solve boredom? And that's why the first thing you need to think about here is, what is it that gets you excited? What are you excited about? What do you want to solve? And if that's the thing, you need to figure that out. Because if you can't figure that out for yourself, no manner of advice or anything that I could possibly say is going to help you. And that's the first thing. So that's like the main thing for everybody to figure out about this programming thing. Because of course you're going to be bored if you just got yourself a programming job for the sake of getting yourself a programming job. I mean, then I've said this a few times, then maybe this isn't the thing for you. You need to think about it as learning a craft in order to solve problems. That's what programming is. If you have no ideas, if you have no passion or anything like that, it's going to be like any other job for you, most likely. It's just, you might as well go and move furniture or work in the service industry or do all kinds of things that may not be programming related, because it's just going to be another job. But if you can figure out what it is that gets you excited, now let's say for the sake of argument that you are excited about learning new things, well, then maybe finding a fairly mature startup would be the thing for you. Like in that sweet spot, usually that's the sweet spot for a mature startup, or a startup where it's a little bit more stable, but it's still very much in a stage where a lot of experimentation is taking place, that's around 50 employees-ish. Like if you go too low, if you're like 5 or something like that, then everything is kind of on fire all the time. Well, technically everything is almost all on fire all the time anyway, but at 5 people, like a really, really small startup, it's a bit of that, then that might be too risky for you. I don't know. But it can still work out, right? But around 50 people is usually a sweet spot if you just want to be in the stage of, okay, we're going to find our corporate identity, we're going to experiment, etc., etc., etc. And if you're excited about really complicated problems or the technical challenges, then it very much comes down to, okay, what type of project am I actually going to work on when I go to a new company? Because that's the thing, right? If you're replying to an ad which states, we're looking for a web developer, what do you expect? That's not probably going to, like, then it's probably not going to be much more exciting than, oh, we're going to build a CRUD application. Then you're going to have to go for quality in your job hunting. You need to be a little bit more picky. Have a think about, okay, what sort of problems seems to be interesting, and that comes back to that self-reflecting thing I've been saying. You have to know yourself well enough to know what's going to get you excited. Maybe you find a job where, oh, we're trying to solve this extremely complicated, interesting problem, and we might help you out with that. An example of such a problem would be, yes, the other day I was talking to one of my coworkers who used to work for a company where their business was to analyze, to parse legal documents, like hundreds of thousands of legal documents, and basically language parse and try to figure out if different changes, like something like as simple as, oh, today is Tuesday 2020 or something like that. How does that affect our legal contracts? Has any of them expired? Or what happens if let's say that we have offices in the UK in the Brexit situation? What happens, like how does that affect our legal security? If for companies such as, and in this scenario, this is actually a company that Google hires them for their legal purposes. This sort of problem is extremely complicated, just as it would be extremely complicated to figure out the Google search algorithm or like work on that thing. There's tons of different projects out there that you could basically tailor your resume towards and try to get a job in that specific sort of company. And lastly, if it's a collaboration type of thing that you're after and just being able to work with people and get excited, then a startup is also usually the place you want to be. It's not always the case, because honestly there are quite a few large companies where they might have a really good office culture as well, but usually startups are a very safe bet that you're going to find people that are fairly passionate. Hopefully, because it can go another way as well, but usually it's not that many people who are willing to be in a fairly high-paced, stressful environment, work for usually less money than they could gain from certain other companies, and pretty much be so close on each other and be like in a small office or something like that without getting something out of it. And usually the thing you get out of that is the personal freedom, the personal satisfaction, and the ability to make your own choices. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're feeling bored like this subscriber, you feel like you're not stimulated, you need to do a little bit of self-reflection and ask the fundamental question: what is going to get me excited? If you don't know that, there's no way anybody can help you, and you can't even help yourself. You need to know yourself first. Once you have an answer to that question, in this scenario it was, okay, I liked my university days, but I don't like work. Well, ask yourself first and foremost, is programming something that you're passionate about? What is the thing that drives you? Because if you don't really care about the problems that you can solve with programming, then it's never going to be more than a job to you. It's always going to be a job. It's probably, you might as well continue and be bored with that, or find another profession that might be more stimulating. And if in this scenario, usually it comes down to collaboration, stimulating problems, or possibly that you need to learn new things. And as I said, if you need collaboration, usually a startup is a really nice place to go for, but you can also just have the mindset that whenever I interview for a company, I'm going to make damn sure that they have a good office culture. Secondly, if you're about the problems, then you need to have a look. You need to be a little bit more picky when you're picking your job. You can't just reply to every job that says, hey, looking for a developer, because then you're going to just most likely build another CRUD application. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific. What type of problem do you want to solve? Third and lastly, you might be in a situation where you just want to learn new things, and then a startup, a more mature startup or something like that, that has a little bit of funding and is in the experimental stage, is the perfect fit for you. It kind of depends. It all comes down to what you value. Have a great day.